Cyrus the Great was the man that once possessed the largest empire in the world, stretching from India to the Mediterranean Sea. Cyrus II of Persia, or Kurosh, was the founder of the Persian Empire under the Achaemenid dynasty. He was known to be a great conqueror, and is best remembered for his unprecedented tolerance and magnanimous attitude towards those who he defeated. Through his campaigns, he united much of the Middle East under Persian hegemony, while keeping the local administration intact. He wrote the Cyrus Cylinder, which is considered to be the first declaration of human rights. He founded Persia by uniting the two original Iranian tribes, which were the Medes and the Persians, and upon his victory over the Medes, he founded a government for the new kingdom, and incorporated not just the Persians but also the Medians as civilian officials. Thus, he won the loyalty of the elite and laid the foundations of the Achaemenid Empire. We do not know much about this great ruler, and information about his birth and childhood can only be found in the works of early Greek historians like Herodotus, Titius, and Xenophon, who all present contradictory accounts of Cyrus the Great. Herodotus claims that he was the son of the Persian king Cambyses and the Median princess Mandane, daughter of the Median king Astyages, while Titius claims that he was the son of the Persian brigand named Artidates. Titius writes that Cyrus was the cupbearer of Astyages' court before he overthrew him. Afterwards, Cyrus adopted Astyages as his father and married his daughter. However, according to contemporary Achaemenid inscriptions, Cyrus was the son of Cambyses, and there are no mentions of any genetic relationship with Astyages. But, if we consider that intermarriage was possible between royal families, then it is a possibility that he took Astyages as a grandfather to gain legitimacy, which is explained by Herodotus. Titius explains similarly to why he married the daughter of Astyages. Nonetheless, most of the historians do agree that he spent part of his youth at Astyages' court, so we may take this to be historically accurate. But then again, this also may be added to support the rest of the claims by the historians. According to most of the sources, Cyrus was born around 576 to 590 BCE. Herodotus writes about his childhood, although this seems to only be a legend. After his birth, his grandfather Astyages had a dream that his grandson would eventually overthrow him, and so he ordered his steward, Harpagus, to kill the infant. Harpagus, however, was unable to kill the newborn because of moral reasons, and handed him over to a herdsman to dispose of the child. The herdsman took him and raised him as his own child. As Cyrus grew, it became obvious that he was not the son of a herdsman, as his behavior was too noble. Astyages came to know of the boy and interviewed him, and found much resemblance of himself in the boy. He asked Harpagus what he had done with the baby, and Harpagus confessed that he had not killed him. And as punishment, Astyages forced him to kill and eat his own son. But Astyages was more lenient towards Cyrus and allowed him to return to his parents, Cambyses and Mandane. There is no way to pinpoint what is truth and what is not in the works of historians due to many contradictions, so until we have more evidence to figure what is accurate, this will remain to be one of the legends of the early years of Cyrus the Great. His fame began around 560, when he took the throne after the death of his father. With the help of Harpagus, who was looking for revenge, he took over Ecbatana, somewhere around 553 to 550 BCE. Ecbatana was the Median capital ruled by Astyages, and conquering it was Cyrus's first great achievement. Harpagus sought the support of the Medians who were unhappy with Astyages' rule. On the other hand, when Astyages heard of Cyrus's rebellion, he ordered the same Harpagus to lead the army against Cyrus, who would later betray him. When the two armies met, Harpagus and the noblemen crossed over from Astyages' side to Cyrus's side, betraying him. At the end, however, Cyrus spares the life of his grandfather. After his victory over his grandfather's kingdom, he founded the city of Massageate on the battle site. and it was meant to serve as a ceremonial capital rather than to house a population. The city had several monuments spread out across the plain, the most notable being the Tal-e-Takht, Palace P and Palace S, and the tombs of Cyrus and his son. But Parsardigay flourished for only a short time until the ceremonial capital was moved to Persepolis. However, the conquest of Media had only started wars when Astyages allied with his brother-in-law Croesus of Lydia and Nabonidus of Babylon and Amasis II of Egypt, who joined forces against Cyrus. Again, with the help of Harpagus, Cyrus was able to defeat the Lydians in 547 BCE. Harpagus advised Cyrus to place his dromedaries in front of his warriors to scare the Lydian horses that were not used to the smell of the dromedaries. As planned, the Lydian cavalry became useless, and Cyrus again became victorious. After the victory, some sources say that Cyrus took Croesus as an advisor, while others say that he was executed. Cyrus later had put a Lydian named Pactius in charge of the treasury of Croesus, but he revolted against Cyrus. When Cyrus sent his general Massageate to deal with the situation, it only led to his death. Harpagus was the one to complete the conquest of Asia Minor and captured the cities of Lycia, Cilicia, and Phoenicia. According to the accounts of Titius, Cyrus may have conquered the Bactrians and the Sacae first. When the Bactrians heard how generous Cyrus was to the people he defeated and that he spared Astyages, they submitted to him voluntarily. With the Bactrians on his side, he turned to the nomadic Sacae and captured their king, Amorges. However, Amorges's wife, Sparthae, was able to gather an army of 300,000 men and 200,000 women and defeated Cyrus in battle. That's when Cyrus let the king free and they became allies and attacked Lydia together. In 539 BCE, he invaded the Babylonian Empire. He allegedly dug canals to divert the river stream so it would be easy to cross over River Diyala. The conquest of Babylon was rather a simple one. Once he had crossed the river, the people of Sippar opened their gates without resistance, and the king had fled. Cyrus sent one of his governors to capture Babylon, and only after 2 weeks, Cyrus was welcomed into Babylon with festivities. On the other hand, Harpagus may have conquered much of the Mediterranean coast before Cyrus invaded Babylon. So by this time, Cyrus was the ruler over the fertile river valleys of Mesopotamia and the rich Mediterranean coast. From what it seems, Harpagus was a great advisor and companion to Cyrus, and he may have had some emotional attachment to Cyrus since he was first handed to him as a child. But let's not forget that he also had enmity with Astyages as well. After his conquest of Babylon, Cyrus ordered a building inscription to be written in his name. This is better known as the Cyrus Cylinder. The inscription was meant to explain and justify the conquest of Babylon to the Babylonian people. Firstly, it claims that the king of Babylon, Nabonidus, was an incompetent, godless king, while Cyrus was appointed by God. Nabonidus neglected the cult of Marduk, which was the patron god of Babylon. The king Nabonidus had imposed heavy labor on the people in preparation for the Persian invasion, and Marduk, the patron god, felt pity on the people, searched the lands for a righteous king, and found Cyrus. The patron god then led Cyrus to victory over the Medes and helped him take over Babylon without a battle. Cyrus then introduces himself as the king of Babylon, who hadn't destroyed the city or frightened anyone. He freed the people of the labor imposed by Nabonidus, and he was a devout worshipper of Marduk. This document appealed heavily to the Babylonians and encouraged them to accept their new king. Historians speculate that Cyrus may have been a Zoroastrian, but there are no sources that describe him as a follower of Ahura Mazda and Zarathustra. We know today that the belief of Zoroastrianism was not standardized until the late Sasanian period. Before that, the Persians adhered to a wide array of beliefs and practices. Ahura Mazda was just one of the many gods the Persians worshipped. So Cyrus was most probably a polytheist who worshipped the traditional gods of that time. Xenophon describes Cyrus as worshipping Mitra, a god of oats. but he may have turned to other gods for other purposes, which explains the worshipping of Marduk, the Babylonian god. Different historians have wrote different accounts about the death of Cyrus. It seems so that he may have died while fighting a nomadic people. Sources claim that it may have been the Massageate who lived across the Iaxartes, or the Derbices from Central Asia, or even another people called the Dahae. There are even other sources that say he died peacefully at his capital. One version of the history says that the queen of Massageate, Tomyris, allegedly beheaded Cyrus in order to avenge the death of her son that Cyrus killed. From Babylonian letters, we know that he died before 530 BCE and was buried in his tomb in Pasargadae with his cloak, weapons, and jewels. From his revolt against Astyages to his death, Cyrus untied all the lands between the Aegean Sea and the Iaxartes under his rule. In his campaigns, he dethroned many kings and appointed his satraps and claimed to be the king himself. He led the local officials to maintain their positions and accommodated the religious practices of the lands. Through his conquest, he had no thought of forcing the conquered people into a single mound. And by leaving the institution of each kingdom unchanged, he won the loyalty of the people, and Cyrus the Great laid the foundations of the Achaemenid Empire.